Welcome to the Money Collective podcast. We're here to uplift your financial well-being. Your hosts are me, Mel Pierce, and Darlene Yu. We are the co-founders of the Money Collective, and together we have over 50 years of finance and banking experience. We provide the tools, information and guidance to better understand your money and feel confident making money decisions. Hello and welcome to our podcast.
Yes.
Another fantastic episode. Here we come.
Yeah, hopefully here we come. We are excited today because we've got a guest speaker for you. But before we get started, let's talk about our truth. What's going on in our money lives, Mel?
Okay.
Do you want to go first?
Yeah, well, sure, I'll go first. I have in previous episodes been talking about how my money system's been messed up, and I've just been making do without really going back in and properly fixing up the system. So I've gone in and finally done that, and geez, it feels good. So it took me to have the holidays, so we didn't go away or anything, and so I've had a bit of time at home to sort out my finances, and there was a really burning desire for us because we, as I've mentioned previously, are going on this holiday, which I originally budgeted $20,000 for, but the real holiday is going to cost $30,000. Plus, we need to cover all of our bills while we're away, which is about $1,600 a week. For 5 weeks. That's the personal, and then there's about $2,500 or so over $2,000 a week for our business expenses as well while we're away, because my husband is self-employed. So there was that whole big budget that I needed to save for. And then in addition to that, I've mentioned that my husband has to have some hip surgery. We'll just throw that into boot. So I just had to magically come up with all this money. So so he's got to have a hip replacement, and that's going to be 6 weeks off work. And I was trying to push him to have less time off work, get back in quicker, get back out there. And then, I heard straight away all these stories about people who did that, and they get back in their machines and stuff, and they just break their hip replacement. Got to go again. It's so bad.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, you're sitting on the couch for 6 weeks, but we've still got to run life, and I suppose usually we would have some savings and it's not a big deal, but I think we were channeling all of that to this trip. So now, and we don't want to run all of our resources down low. We definitely decided we didn't want to borrow any money to get through this year. We want to just do it. So I've set up all of my systems, all of my automations in my accounts, and I am on a complete spending amnesty, I should say.
Yeah.
Not allowed to spend a cent on
anything food at home.
Anything that is essential. So we did go to the dentist yesterday. I went to the dentist and had to get some, essential health stuff, right? So that's still keep us
essential
alive.
Health and essential food.
And then hopefully nothing breaks.
Yeah.
But my normal spending budget for the family is $685 a week, and that is now $300 a week, including food and everything. So
that's phenomenal.
$30 a day, something. I'm looking for a calculator.
Yeah.
What is it? We always have a calculator. Girls, where's your calculator?
Yeah, always carry one in your bag. I use it all the time.
$300 times 52 divided. No. What is it? I've got
That's $685.
I've actually got $1,300 as my budget for the month. Times 12 divided by 52 is $300 a week. Divided by 7 is $42.85 a day. Okay. I can do this.
Okay. I think it's amazing. And I have seen how driven Mel is to achieve this goal. And she's got enough confidence because she's booked her trip now to Canada. So
I've got the airfare, and I've got also ring-fenced the money for the trip. Another trip, so I've ring-fenced the money for the surgery. So and we're also helping that Work Cover, if anyone from Work Cover is listening, is going to help with those surgery costs as well.
Yeah.
But I put $18,000 in an account to cover those 6 weeks, and I'm still thinking that Work Cover is going to top that up for us. I've got about $8,000, but I've got to save another 30 in 5 months, or something like that.
Yeah.
And then that hits our goals.
Yes.
And there's not going to be a lot of spending on this trip. It sounds like so much money. Like
it does.
Yeah.
It's definitely $30,000
extra that I need to save on top of what I've already got.
Which it's going to cost though. It's definitely $30,000. Yeah.
No, it's more like, including our expenses and our time away. It's 38 plus 6 is 42.
Yes, that's coming. I do love actually. I think
44. Yeah, $44,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I do love how you've actually planned for still that, cost at home. I think when people do go on holidays, they don't consider, those continuing costs at home that you've still got to pay. So, that's really great planning.
Because it's only because of all of the added stuff, especially with the surgery, because usually I've got enough backup savings to like kind of not worry about it. Like, it's fine. And we'd make do, but this time I'm like planning that to the nth degree.
Yeah. And I think though, how good. I'm really excited to follow this project because how good will it feel? And it's actually like what you actually can do if you put your mind to it. If you cut your cost to $42 a day, and you can do that for a consistent period of time. Oh my God, what a lesson and a learning in that.
If anyone's watching on a video podcast, I got this dress from a hand-me-down from a friend. I picked up so many clothing items just from me saying I'm not spending. I don't have to spend money. I'm not saying I'm using people at all, but like when you put something out into the universe, I'm receiving. And this is like a new Hunger Games for me. Like it's a sport. I
feel that.
Loving the challenge, and I did this calculator, and it said, if I can, even if this would even be pulling back a little bit, but if I kept the same habits, I could have my home loan paid off in 5 years.
So, oh my gosh! So after this, you go.
I don't know if that is actually realistic, but like, oh my God, that got me going. I'm thinking,
what's possible?
And that's what is possible if I really try. Yeah.
I think that is leave, the audience with, what is possible. And we're not saying go to extremes, but how much in life do we actually just spend and don't take much notice of? Look, there's definitely something energize me because I need to, after the holidays, just really buckle down, reset, have a look at my spending. It's due for a review, so that's my commitment to, get my review in order, set some new, update my cash hub and where the money goes.
Like I'm this little squirrel now, so like at night time, it's like, what are you doing, Mel? And I'm like, my spreadsheet.
So update your daily spending on your spreadsheet.
Or just like my goals, or I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh, we all good. So instead of it being a monthly, or even I was doing it quarterly to being weekly almost. That's a bit out of control, but that's how pumped I am
to do this. Actually, they're saying to create a habit, what is it, 21 days or something? It'll be very interesting to see, what conditioning it does to you over time. Anyway, let's stay tuned.
A 6-pack of finances.
Yes, you will. And you have more than 6-pack? Maybe
I don't know.
That's pretty cool. My truth, continue on around kids and money today. It's been the holiday time, and my 12-year-old daughter, Lily, I reckon, has been a bit out of control with money. And I haven't set boundaries. And I actually went out with a couple of girlfriends last night, and our girls are friends, and we were talking about the same challenges that we're having. The same thing, like it's not an endless pit of money. It's holiday time. We're going to the shops. We want, money for food. Let's go to the movies. All the things, right? That we have to. Well, we don't have to. That's where I'm going. But I do think there's an opportunity to do some planning in this. Back to what you were saying. Now, what is the number, and how am I going to manage it for the year ahead? And how can I teach Lily about money and understanding, that you can save some and buy something you really want? Because the way Lily rolls is that she got $300 for Christmas, And then she loves, I've talked about this before on the podcast, skincare and makeup at Mecca or Sephora. And so she went after Christmas, she went there and just spent $200. And I said to her at the time, I said, think about things you might want in the future. Whatever you spend today, you don't have money to do that with later. Think about what matters and priorities. And, to a 12-year-old, she just rolls her eyes. But now what's come to be is that she wants to do some other things, and she's realised she doesn't have the money to do that. So I'm trying to teach that hard lesson, but it has got. I was talking to my husband Dennis about it too. What are the boundaries we want to set for the year? Yeah. And I'm feeling that it's pocket money, and I haven't gone. I get challenged with pocket money because I love the habits that you can create. So, and then what do you have to spend your pocket money on is the question. Because I also still want her to contribute around home, right? Yes. You're part of the family. Yes. So you still have to unpack the dishwasher and do some jobs because that's just being part of the family. But I think pocket money and just, sending pocket monies to cover all these things. That's right. So she can manage her budget however she likes. And well, today's podcast, we've got a special guest who's going to talk about superannuation. But what comes out through that interview is that it's hard to get perspective as a young person. So the younger you are, the more unrealistic your future is. Yeah. So even a year for Lily is not like that. So we are older, like we're in our 40s and 50s, and we can see, oh shit, time is running out. Yeah. How are we going to do? We can see the clock running out quickly. She has got the clock; it hasn't even started. It's endless, isn't it? And this credit card that doesn't, you know what I mean? That's not even real money. That's what my daughter says. Feeding that instant gratification, I'm not helping her at all. So when school goes back, that's what's going to happen. So she'll have, and she can, if she wants to buy a lunch at school or any discretionary spend, she can save it up or not. I haven't thought about what amount that's going to be yet per week. I'll work on that. I'm open to what's the going rate. Is it 10 or $20? What do you reckon? It's $20. 20? Yeah. Yeah. But I've got to survive on that too, so I'm not helping them at all, really. No, but they've got to, otherwise there's food in the fridge and, she's got all the necessities. More than that though. So anyway, there's no right or wrong, I don't suppose. But yeah, I think she was good, and she's a goal-driven person. I think about your children too and tailored to who they are as a person. I think it's important because she is driven by goals. So last year she was really good, and I didn't worry so much because she really wanted the first mobile phone. And so she saved all her money and didn't spend. She was great, And now it's almost like I've got the phone and everything's great and I don't have any goals anymore. It's exactly, for all of us, not just children. Right. We need goals. And she doesn't have a purpose for her money, so she spends it until the next thing comes up. Well, that's what's happened to me. I've got this huge goal. Yeah. And that's all that matters right at the moment. Yeah. I will come back when I get back. But other goals. Yeah. But my children know that there is no extra money in the household at the moment. Mum is not spending money on anything, and you cannot ask mum for money. Like I've said those words out loud. They know it because I'm saying it. I'm like, no. They know what my budget is. Yeah. So if they want to do things, that's fine, but there's no asking me for it. No, they've got to work it out. Because my goal is so clear. So it doesn't. If your goal is clear too, or what your boundaries are, I suppose is clear too. That's a really good tip. Because when I come back and I've gone for the holiday of the century, and come back, then my goals are going to change. I'm going to have to, because I've even pulled back from putting money into superannuation or as much. I've halved it. I need to put that back, and then I need to start readjusting. I'll have to create a new budget, but I suppose that's good food for thought for me, that I need a burning desire, whether it is paying my home loan off in a certain amount of time and just being clear. Exactly. Because we know from the studies that if we don't have goals, then we're more materialistic. And I'm sure we would have mentioned this before, but it's worth mentioning again. So because we're not striving for something, so goals are really important.
for our children as well. So
that's no different. It's funny, isn't it? It's the same principle.
What's going to motivate them?
That goal.
Because we're not going to save them all the time, so they need to get out of that habit of thinking that we're going to solve all their problems financially, even if they're teenagers.
Yes.
Doesn't matter. Yeah. So let's get them thinking.
Right. And I think that feeling of actually I can't have that thing I want. I think our kids need to feel that. I think, or become innovative on how that they can do it. Now, if they're old enough, maybe they will go and, do a job or, get part-time work or something, or even at home, Lily's asking me for jobs, So I think those things are really important. So yes, so we're going to do a pocket money year. And we'll see how it goes. So it's going to be on discretion and keep it posted.
Yeah, awesome.
Great.
So today we have Trenna Probert on our podcast. She was the winner of the Australian Women in Finance Awards. She was the Woman of Finance for 2023.
Amazing. She brings so much thought, leadership, to everyday things, and obviously it's around money, and we'll talk about her business.
Yes, and her business is all around superannuation, and it's called Super Fierce. So stay tuned and let's enjoy our interview with Trenna Probert.
Tell us about Super Fierce, Trenna.
And welcome to our podcast.
Well, it's lovely to be here. And, I knew the moment that you came, rushing up in excitement at the Women in Finance Awards that we were, I was going to say brethren, let's say kindred souls would be more appropriate given the fierce female energy we've got going on here. But yeah, look, we're so aligned in what we believe and what we are aspiring to do. And so Super Fierce is my answer to my own personal experiences through my life, which are not uncommon for women, where we live big, interesting, amazing lives. We're trying to juggle too many things. There are a lot of expectations. Things get out of control, and all of a sudden you can find yourself in a tricky position. And I've always had, a lot of strange internal strength, I suspect. Maybe it's because I was an odd kid who didn't really have many friends, so I kind of had to forge my way through life alone. But Super Fierce is my answer to my own experiences of financial hardship. And a lot of those were the result of decisions around relationships and really giving away my power. And so my very tiny, lofty ambition is to close the $30 trillion global gender wealth gap by making appropriate, affordable advice accessible to every woman around the globe.
Yeah.
Why do I think that's important? Because financial knowledge is part of it. Financial confidence is part of the formula, part of the equation. Financial resilience is a part of it. But putting all of that on the individual to know and understand alone, particularly when our education system is not designed to raise financially confident people, regardless of gender, culture, sexual orientation, all of us, our education isn't built that way at the moment. And so I hate the fact that we keep saying, women need to be more financially literate. It kind of puts the onus back on the person who is often least able to address that problem or that need. And what I hate about it as well, and you'll get a breath in a minute, but is that I want women to know you actually are already good at this stuff.
Yeah.
Women control 80% of the economic decisions in households around the world. Women manage the financial resources within their homes. When things are tough financially, we find ways to save and to make the money go further. We are intuitively good at this. Same with investing. And so that was a very long, passionate answer, which doesn't even cover half of it for me. But really, Super Fierce for me is about it's about a belief that I don't want to do something to women. I don't want to do something for women. I don't want to go out with a statement that I'm there to empower women. I want to make it easier for women to build the financial confidence, resources, and resilience that they need to be able to make the decisions about their life that they're going to love. Because I don't really care about money. I really don't. I probably should care more. What I care about with money is that it's a tool that gives women choice, and that's what it's about.
Wow.
So super fierce for me is the exclamation mark at the end of any sentence where you've been able to make decisions that put you in a position to live a life that you'll love. And it's as simple as that. It's not actually as simple as that, but the aspiration is as simple as that.
I love that so much, Trenna, and we can relate to that so much. I mean, if we had to do an introduction for our business, you are almost word for word what we believe and what we talk about. And you're so right that women know this stuff. It is not that we need to be uplifted or we need to be educated or our financial literacy is not as good. And in fact, there's so many studies that show that our financial literacy as women as a whole is better, stronger, and we can make better saving and investing decisions. The problem is that we're working with less money.
And another part of that as well, completely agree. So we're working with less money. We're starting with less money, and we all know that compounding can be excellent, but it can also be bad, right? So compounding works whether you're starting from a bad base or a good base. And so it's not just the financial compounding, but it's the compounding of inequity. Right, the longer inequity exists, the bigger it becomes. So, and as we get older, that inequity, it builds further. But still, let's talk about super for a second.
Yeah.
Still, the divide is huge.
How big is the divide?
So, around the world, the gender retirement gap is the largest contributor to the gender wealth gap in every region. Across OECD, 29%. In Australia, we're retiring on average with 42% less than men, but we live on average 4 to 5 years longer. Right? Just be thankful you're not in the US, where on average they're retiring with 66% less.
Yeah.
Now let's go back to the beginning of our working lives. By the time that you're 23 years old in this country, on average, if you're a woman, you are already earning 10% less than men. Now, we know that there are lots of contributors to it at that point. So one of those is we have a much higher number of women who are graduating from university. So that's a contributor because they've been at university and not earning at the same level that boys who go out into trades. I feel like this is a really big gap in the Australian employment opportunity environment. So boys have another path that they can go into, which is you can get a trade and have a very vibrant, robust, and I think the point is defensible. Like there's always a need for people with trades, and you get paid a lot.
Well, someone actually said to me, sorry to interrupt, but someone said to me not long ago, it's only in Australia that we view building or builders and tradies and a very high status in Australia, right?
Absolutely.
In many other countries, it's not regarded as, a business or a job of choice, but in Australia, it really is because we value that family home and, building is seen as, pretty cool, right? Yeah. And you can earn really great money and run a great business.
And it does, and it's interesting that flow through point around that as well, which is so then we immediately are stepping into people say, how can you pay the same for different jobs? People aren't getting paid. It's not because being an electrician is harder than being a nurse or harder than being a kindergarten teacher. Anybody who's got kids, not harder than being a kindergarten teacher. And certainly not more important, for God's sake. right? However, it is about our social perception of what the value is. Now, you look at the comparable opportunities for girls who are deciding to leave school early, there is not that same route. Are you going to become a hairdresser?
Hairdressing and makeup is what I think
Or
of.
caring for people, right? So whether it's health
Correct.
or childcare or,
Now, they are equally viable careers, but they're not valued in the same way. So how can men truly understand when they are born into a life of privilege in this country where everything is actually built for them to flourish? But our conversation is not about that today. Our conversation is, what can women do?
Women do. Or what can people do? You know, I think it is a question more broadly, though. You know, we can definitely, you know, and I want to delve there about, you know, your tips for women and, you know, but what in general, what can everybody do, you know?
Yeah,
like,
what everybody can do. And I mean, so I want, as a starting point, for all Australians to understand superannuation is your money. It's your money. And not only is it your money, so the government actually did something really great. They realized that for the most part, present bias, our fixation with what feels good today, or the way that I phrase it is the dreams and demands of today. So the things that are shitty and we're worried about today, and also the things we really want today, are much more pressing than the future. And you know this, like every financial decision for the most part is about delaying gratification. So I want people to understand it's their money. Number two, I also want them to understand that superannuation is not a granny's savings account. It's not a piggy bank for grannies for the bingo bowls and blue rinse. You know, it's actually a tax effective investment environment. So you're not paying as much tax on it, but the longer it's in there, it's compounding. So it's growing and growing and growing on itself. And let's see who can describe compounding best later. And whoever gets it, you know, is buying everybody a bottle of champagne, because hardest thing in the world to explain well, I think. But it's this tax effective environment. And the earlier you start, the more and more it's growing for you. And the most important thing to understand about that, it's being taken out of your pay anyway. It's your money. Make sure it's working hard for you. Make sure you're being paid that money. Often it disappears, not good. And then when you're thinking about that, so once you've made sure that you're thinking about your super, my biggest tip about super for everybody is you're going to ignore it. You're not going to prioritize it unless you give it meaning. So why should you care about it? And it's really hard to build a relationship with the person you're going to be in future when you're young. For me, I'll be 52 this year. It's getting easier and easier to think about who that person's going to be, particularly because I've realized I'm not that different than I was when I was 8, 15, 24, 32, etc. Definitely a bit wobblier, but same dreams, aspirations, fears. And so really start to give it meaning and go, what life do I want to lead? What do I worry about now? Because by the time you're heading to a point in your life where you might think about stopping working, at least in the way that you do today in full force, you've run out of time, and you deserve to live in safety. You deserve some simple pleasures and happiness in those later stages of life. You know, this may be the only go we get at this wonderful thing.
Yes.
And so just even if you're not going to make contributions yourself, make sure that the money that's being taken from your pay is being used wisely. So that's why it's important to understand in a superannuation fund, you know, it's not a bank account. You are paying layer upon layer upon layer of fees. And I defy any normal person, me included, to be able to unravel every fee in a product disclosure statement. It's complicated. So you're paying fees to the investment managers in these super funds to invest your money for you. It doesn't just sit there, people. They are taking that money and they are investing it on your behalf, and their job is to grow that for you so that nest egg is growing. Now, that's great, but are you as someone who's going to invest it well? Are you paying what's an appropriate amount for that? Are they delivering returns that are commensurate with that? Is it sustainable? Are they investing where you're happy with that? These are all key questions. Now, it is genuinely complicated. It's the exact opposite of what I normally say about finance and investing, which is I think investing is quite intuitive. But when it comes to super, there is layers and layers of this. And people say to me, surely there's one best super fund for everybody. No, there's not. And that's because we're not the same. We're not the same. Starting point, great starting point. But also different ages, different income, different gender, all of these things impact this different risk profile. And so often people will say to me, oh, look, surely my employer knows best. I just put my money in. Like how, say you work for Coles. Like how on earth do they know what's best for the 3,000 odd people or whatever it is that work for them?
I can see how overwhelming this is for people because, like, first of all, we hear all the time, I'm bad with money. And then, oh my gosh, what if I've got like 5 super funds already? How do I even get them together? Now you're talking about fees, returns. Oh my gosh, I'm tapping out at least. And then at least I'm invested somewhere. I know I'm getting and I'll sort it out one day. That's it. I just think so many people think like that.
And I'm exactly the same. And I've worked in finance the majority of my career. I've had big, interesting jobs. And my husband, he was the chief global investment officer for Macquarie. Before we started this business, we had about 9 super funds between us. Like, what the? Yeah. And just in case anybody's wondering why can't I have more than one super fund? If you've got one phone, would you pay for a phone plan with Telstra, Optus and Vodafone? No, you're just paying more for one. So it doesn't make sense.
And then I think for the everyday person, you think, well, if somebody like that has got 9 super funds, what hope do I have? Or the conversations go around, you start a work conversation and somebody has been salary sacrificing to superannuation and they've got this elaborate plan that seems to be amazing and you don't even understand what they're saying. How do you take those first steps? I think that's where Super Fierce comes in, isn't it?
It is. It's why I built Super Fierce, actually. Well, even going back a tiny step further was, I talked about my frustration about the gender wealth gap, but it started at a much more little level. When I got past sort of, the striving and so on and got a little bit, and I was just like, I started to look up a bit and started to get annoyed and then angry about the gender pay gap. But, and probably like everybody, I say, it just felt like too big a problem. I was like, what can I do about that? And, I'm not really wired for the glacial change that's required, where you've got to rely on so many other things and so on. And so where Super Fierce started from, and there's more pieces to this, but most importantly was, I was like, well, that's going to take forever, but I can attack it from the other end. If the gender retirement gap is the largest contributor to the gender wealth gap, let's smash that apart first. And so what I worked out was that if we could just make it simple for a woman to make sure she wasn't wasting $100,000 on fees for nothing, we could have a staggering impact on her future financial well-being. And a really important insight here for your girls is what a woman does between the ages of 20 and 30 with her super, just not paying too much for your super. Before you even look at contributions, before you look at investment performance, just not paying too much in fees closes the impact of the average gender pay gap and the impact of time out of the workforce on your ultimate financial well-being.
That's a great tip. Yeah. Because you just want that one thing, because you get all of these things, which is the most, what's the first thing I should be looking at?
The one thing, right? And it's interesting, Craig and I were sitting yesterday, I was like, right, Craig's my husband and business partner, and I was just like, I think we need to take what we've done and we kind of need to build. I was playing around with it's kind of like, your first super starter product. How do we take what we've done and just create a really simple mechanism with advice, just step by step, for a young person who's starting out on their earning journey to just add in things and get set up in an optimal position to begin their life, right? And it's going to come because that's actually not that difficult for us to do, and I think it's hugely important. But to answer your question, Super Fierce is designed to remove all of that headache. So what was important to us is that every Australian, and by the way, about 27% of our customers are men, we're for everybody. We focus on women first because everybody's ignoring us, and we need that help more. But we want every Australian to have access to independent, unbiased advice about their super. So you come to our platform, you answer a few questions. Our calculator runs instantly more than 180,000 calculations, comparing more than 2,000 investment options from more than 350 super funds. It assesses all of those based on the information that's been put in around you. You know, what's your gender? What's your age? How much are you earning? How much have you gotten super already? You know, when do you hope to retire? How much do you want to, retire with? What sort of lifestyle do you want to have as well? And then you get a report, which is actually a legal financial document. It's a statement of advice, not the typical boring one you see, but it's designed to make it simple to understand. And in there, we have created for you an investment strategy. I mean, bottom line though, forget that, I'll tell you the other bit in a minute. Bottom line, what it shows you is how much you're on track to retire with, how much you need to fund the lifestyle that you've told us you want.
Yes.
If you can have more, if you need more, and how much more we can help you to have by not just making sure you don't have too many funds, not just putting you into a different super fund, but instead building a custom investment portfolio for you, either within the fund that you're already in, make it work better for you, or shift you into a different fund with a custom investment portfolio that's getting the best balance of growth and defensive assets across a range of different investment assets that suits where you are in your life, that's going to put you on a better trajectory to where you should be. Now, the reason we're able to do this is because we're super nerds, but we're just total nerds in general, actually. But so we've built the most robust and comprehensive database about superannuation in the country. We've built algorithms that interrogate that information, but leveraging a benchmarking methodology that we've built. Now, that language probably doesn't suit everybody, but essentially, it's a comparison, an investment comparison tool. When it comes to the time of year where all of these super funds come out and talk about their performance, I have to turn off the radio in my car when I'm taking my son to school, because otherwise my language is inappropriate when I look at all of our money being splashed onto advertising on bus stops and buses, telling us about the last year's performance of each super fund to try and entice us to go into them. Why do I care about that? Because superannuation is a long-term investment asset. So what they did last year is just the tiniest dot in the ocean of what matters. Yeah. What matters most first, and the Grattan Institute is an independent research house in Australia, and their very unsexy language is that fees are persistent, in performance is transient. What they mean is the only thing you can be sure about is the fees you're paying. You can't be sure of the performance you're going to get. So the first thing you do is you make sure you're not paying too much. But we understand that performance absolutely does matter, but only if it's measured in an appropriate way, which is why we built this tool to compare every investment asset, every super fund against each other, with the investment options within each fund against each other, but also all of them against each other to work out what's best. Now, what we did is we didn't just look at last year. We didn't just look at the last 3 years. We looked at it over a whole range of periods of time, back 20 odd years, as long as we've got the data. The reason why we do that is what we want to know is not who did best last year. We want to know which investment fund, which investment options have a greater likelihood of delivering strong, consistent returns over time, over the next 20, 30, 40 years. Now, the good news is over the last 20 odd years, we've had every type of crazy shit going on in the world. So we've got evidence about how they perform in every type of investment environment. We know what listed and unlisted property is likely to do in these environments. We've had the global financial crisis, we've had tech bubbles, we've had feast, we've had famine, we've had plague, we've had the whole freaking lot, right?
Yes, we have.
And that's useful. That's useful. Yeah. So we benchmark all of those funds and all of those investment options. What that means is when you come onto our website, and this is just a couple of minutes of your time.
It is.
Honestly.
I can vouch for that.
Yeah. Couple of minutes of your time, we do all of the work for you. And what's important to understand is we do not earn money from any super fund, any financial institution, which makes it a lot harder as a business to survive and do well. But, you know, we die on the importance of that, probably poorly choice of words. We commit to that because we think it's we know it's absolutely critical that consumers can trust that the information that we're providing is unbiased and that our remuneration is unconflicted. And unlike comparison sites, so comparison sites will compare everything and then you choose. And typically it's a marketing model. The more they're getting paid by someone, they get floated to the top. You know, it's like when you go on to Myer and, you know, you sort by lowest cost and still something expensive at the top, you know, same thing, right? They've paid to be at the top.
Yeah.
We don't do that. And in fact, we don't even show you all of the different comparison options. Instead, we do the work and then we provide personal advice to you, legal, financial advice about what's best for you individually and make that recommendation.
And is that how you're remunerated, Trenna?
The way we're remunerated is if somebody decides that they want, so the first part of our process is free. So you can go on, you get to answer a few questions, get to play with our dream retirement planner, see how much it's going to cost for the life that you're dreaming about, make some adjustments and see if you can afford it. At that point, all of that's free. If you would like to get the personal advice and find out which fund, which investment portfolio is best for you, it's $49.95 to buy that report. And when you think that a financial advisor will charge you between $2,500, $3,500 for that and ongoing fees, we think that's a steal.
Oh, by the time you park, drive and buy your coffee to see the financial planner, it's cost you that much.
That's right.
Now, something that is a little bit frustrating to me is that, you know, people will tell me they can't afford that, but I see everybody down at Mecca and at the cafe and so on. So
you can't not afford that.
Our priorities.
Wow.
Yeah.
So a little reminder, on average, our customers on average are now retiring with an extra $283,000.
Wow.
And that's just in fee savings. That's before you even look at the likely ultimate improvement in performance. So we know that we're adding a huge amount of value with what we're doing, but we do need to reach more people because it matters. At that point, you can go in, have a look at that. We provide a free DIY switch kit, so it's easier to go and make the changes to your super, because strong tip, what the government and super funds tell you, just click here and it's all done.
Yes.
It's not actually that simple.
Okay.
You want to make sure that the money goes from where it all was and actually gets to where it's meant to be, not in 3-6 months' time, which it often happens and things go missing in the ether. But also importantly, if you decide to make the changes yourself, we give you a list of the things to watch out for. So it's really important to understand that there are benefits that you may be unconsciously losing out on when you make a change to your super if you're not paying attention to that. So we do provide a paid service, which is for one of our concierge to actually manage that whole process for you. But they don't just do that. They look at your insurance through that and they make sure that you're not going to be worse off if you make that change. And in some circumstances, even though I said earlier we don't believe in having more than one super fund, there are exceptions to the rule. So some of our customers, as an example, where they have existing medical conditions, they actually have insurance they're paying for in their super fund, we will advise leaving a certain amount and how to manage that so that that continues, so you maintain those benefits whilst accessing the benefits of a more optimal portfolio in another super fund as well, so that you're getting those different benefits, and a whole range of other examples. That service, we charge $499.95 for that. You know, even I think it sounds expensive, honestly, and I'm wired to try and make things more affordable.
Not at all. I think that's amazing. I think that's the biggest prohibitive thing, and why people don't make changes is because it costs, you know, sometimes $6,000 to go and get a consultation, a statement of advice, and make some changes like that.
That's right.
Would you like a cherry on top of that little super Sunday that we've just given you? So you can choose to pay for that super switch service by card. And, you know, it's important that I say as well that none of this is financial advice that I'm giving today. You need to check your own circumstances, seek blah, blah, blah advice, all those sorts of things. But, you know, if you do pay by credit card, it's important to understand that, forget that. You can pay by credit card. Alternatively, we have made it possible to pay for the implementation service, so the super switch service from your super. If you choose that option, it does decrease your balance, so that will impact your ultimate savings. However, we actually have built that into our calculations. So if we're projecting a future position, that will be a conservative view of that. It will either be that or more ultimately.
Yes. And ultimately, you're getting your superannuation sorted and you're being proactive. And I think because we talk a lot about being empowered and doing things for yourself is so important. And this is one of those things where you're not outsourcing it. You're taking the controls here, making decisions. And
that's it.
I just think it's a great way to go about it and get started, because there's not many other options.
No, well, I loved also that you're offering a DIY service. So, you know, if you want to, you know, become more educated, understand, you can have a go, but then you've got that support there
if you need it
to help you through, and you can decide which way to go. So I love that too. I've got a question. What about ongoing maintenance? So how often should I review it? And do I come back and do the same process, or, you know, how does that work?
We would recommend that you do look at your super, you know, around the middle of the year, you know, you want to just, or around tax time, it's worth just checking it out. So we don't recommend constantly changing your super. A lot of people try to chase based, you know, they'll watch what's going on and they'll switch and so on. It's not a great idea, people. Long-term investment assets require you to stay the course to a certain extent. Now, but it is worthwhile keeping an eye on it. You know, it's worth seeing, is the money you're being paid going into your account? A strong tip, though, if you're relying on the information on the government sites, you know, there's typically a lag, right? And the challenge is that there's no legislation that requires the super funds to do reporting in the same cycles. So there's not consistency there. However, if you log on to your online account for your super fund, you will get the up-to-date information there.
Sometimes that's just empowering enough to know how to log in and check your balance and go, oh, I know how to do that and I can see it, to make it tangible and real.
Actually, you know, that owning it and actually knowing where to find it, logging on and finding my balance and, you know, looking at it from time to time. I think that's really empowering. Yeah,
it's interesting. You know, we had been thinking about whether we should be putting in little triggers to our customers about, you know, what they should be looking at, when they should be reviewing it. We're looking at the moment, you know, when there are changes to insurance, or when there's changes, because we've, you know, I shouldn't take any of the credit for this, but, you know, we've unraveled the complexity of the costs of insurance, relative insurance within all of the super funds as well, because that's a key indicator as well around, you know, actually key point. Everybody, you can choose to pay for life TPD insurance, not in all super funds, but in a lot of them. And it can be a good choice for you. Not always. Like insurance is where you really do need to get personal advice. Because when you talk about personal, it doesn't really get more personal than that. You know, our individual circumstances around this are much more nuanced. So we really do recommend that. But yeah, we would definitely say, you know, you either want to check it out once a year, you know, set a date, set a you know, make a date with yourself in your diary to do that, and you know, put a nice bottle of wine on ice for that day, or whatever you need to do to prioritize it, or do it with some friends. But the other times to really think about that as well is when we should be looking at our super is at important life moments. Getting your first job. Going to your first real job.
Yes.
You know? Thinking ahead to, I might start to think about having a baby, or I might think about getting married or taking time out of the workforce, or lo and behold, I suddenly got married, or holy moly, I'm pregnant, or, you know, I'm going to start the IVF process, or, you know, I'm looking ahead to when I might start thinking about retiring or changing jobs, or maybe there's a divorce in the wings, or you've been blindsided by it. These are all moments to really look at it, because circling back to one of the first things I said today, it's your money, and it is either your first or second largest lifetime financial asset, and ignore it at your peril, honestly. Right?
And particularly too for like younger people who might find it daunting, or even the thoughts are occurring to them, it could be impossible for them to buy a house, you know. So like, what is that longer term asset? And there's nothing wrong with renting or having other alternate options or other investment strategies with your everyday money, but really focusing on that superannuation. And I think as with the work that we do with our money coaching, what you've just talked about with all those life events, that everything that we talk about too when it comes to looking at your money, but we're talking about the money that you can see in an everyday sense, the money, the net income that's actually hitting your bank account, because all those trigger points are times when you need to readjust. Am I still on course? Am I doing the right thing? But we need to not forget about that invisible money, which is our superannuation. I've never paid much attention to my superannuation, and when I did your on the website, your little calculator, and worked out, I actually felt way better about myself, because I have that feeling, oh, I'm never going to get there, I'm never going to be good enough. My gosh. And it was very empowering just by doing that.
It's actually interesting you say that. That's actually the majority of the response from people. And what's also interesting is they feel better and they lean in and start to make positive decisions. Right? It's like when you start exercising. Like thinking about, like, it's shit, but as soon as you do it and you go, oh, I actually feel good, or, you know, and so then it motivates you to do it more.
Keep doing it. That's right. We need to stop ignoring it. And that's the only other piece of advice that I wanted to add to your list that you were saying, is to be deliberate. We say this all the time, to be deliberate with all the money that you have all the time, and to be deliberate in every sense of that word. And it's time to get that head up out of the sand and go for what you want. And it means you're going to have to do things as well.
And as a part of that, just being aware, you will still make mistakes.
Yes.
So I really wish that people could understand that that's actually life. You know, we're not designed to know and get it right all the time. And that even though we don't want the mistakes and wish that we didn't happen, but it did, and it happened for a reason, because it gets you to pay attention or to make a better decision, or suddenly realize that something else matters more. Probably an important one that we haven't touched on, but just let's do it super quickly. Regardless of what age you are, but particularly, you know, women who are setting out on a new relationship, or women who are later on in life and they haven't taken an active role in the financial affairs in the family, you know, they feel like really difficult conversations, because we're brought up to believe that we're not good at it. We're brought up in this country to believe that talking about money is impolite, and we're brought up to believe that girls are good and they don't speak up, right, to varying degrees. Now, it's absolutely critical that you have, and they will be difficult conversations a lot of the time, right? Then, but the most important, and the most important conversations often are uncomfortable. But money, finances, is the number one cause of relationship issues and divorce. If you don't want to get divorced, which is financially challenging, if you don't want to get divorced, have those uncomfortable conversations earlier. Make sure that you're on the same path together. And also that there's kindness to each other when things go wrong. And here's the thing, if you build a plan together, if you're accountable together, when things go wrong, there's going to be less finger pointing and you've got a greater chance to stay strong together.
That's right.
Now, if you're in your 50s or your 60s or even your 40s and you've been married for a long time or in relationships and you haven't done that, you may think it's too late, but it's not too late. And if you turn up confidently, but with kindness to a conversation that just says, I really want to be involved. It matters to me to learn. We've always divided these responsibilities in the past because I was good at this, you were good at that, but I'm ready now. And I feel like I could be a good partner to you in this, and it matters to me.
Yeah.
I think that's hugely important. And you may find that it bridges a gap.
It's really important. And I think it's a responsibility for everyone in the relationship to understand how the money and everything works. One person, can't outsource all of that to one person, because what I do see over time is that a little piece of self-confidence is depleted as time goes on. And it is predominantly a female in a relationship, and then they don't know how to get it back. But it's everyone's responsibility to know how this stuff works. And, maybe you share the job role, or, you're taking turns doing it, or, you have discussions once a month, or, whatever works for you. But
the biggest takeout for us today is that superannuation, we need to take, even though it's invisible, we need to, it's real. It's real.
Yeah. And if I, maybe add to, a few key tips is, one, make sure that your superannuation, you have a look at it and review it from a perspective of making sure there's low fees, because that's going to save you a lot of money over time. Making sure you do combine them if you can. And sometimes it might not be for you, but get advice on that. But in the majority, because it's like having a phone plan, you don't want to pay for 10, just one would be good. And
use the super fees calculator.
Yeah, that's right. That's great. Just take charge and learn how to get into your super and look at the balance and see if it's growing. Give it as much respect as you give your everyday money.
Yeah, sometimes I think you'll find that by noticing that you've actually got money in super, it makes you feel a little bit better as well, and you start to make other positive decisions outside of your super as well.
Yeah, great to see something grow.
Well, thank you so much, Trenna, for sharing your story with us today and all of your helpful hints. We've enjoyed every single moment of it, and there's no wonder why you're the woman in finance.
That's
in
Australia.
Thank you.
That's right. Absolutely. It's been wonderful to listen. Thank you for all of your openness.
Thank you so much. And thank you for everything that you're doing for people and women everywhere. I think it's so incredibly important.
At the Money Collective, we provide financial wellbeing, premium coaching, mortgage broking and workplace financial wellbeing programs, which we couldn't do without the seamless support of our fabulous team.
If you'd like to find out more, head to themoneycollective.com.au or our socials to take action and engage our services. In our Facebook group, join the conversation and help us break down the taboo around money.
All content in this podcast is for educational purposes only and is general in nature. For tailored personal advice, please seek out a professional.